Welcome, Daniel Nation, to our monthly podcast, the Daniel Report. It's good to see everybody back on our show tonight. And this evening, I have a very special guest for you, Doc Pete Chambers, who's running for governor of the state of Texas. Welcome to the show, Doc.
Good evening, sir. It's great to be here.
Glad to have you, sir. So, Doc, you are a decorated lieutenant colonel and special operations flight surgeon in the U.S.
Yes, sir.
Army, Purple Heart recipient, Bronze Star recipient. Thank you for your service, sir.
You are worth it, brother.
Amen, brother. So, tell our audience what got you involved in politics.
Well, I never dreamt of that, as many people will tell you. I've never dreamt that. I would not even thinking about it. Maybe running for sheriff. That was really kind of a goal along my career. I had been a reserve sheriff deputy, so I thought, well, maybe someday sheriff. But honestly, it started on Pentecost of this last year. A group up in Bonham, Texas, had asked me to come to a campfire, and it was the last ambush of my life because it was a quote unquote ambush. Because they asked me at that campfire, would you consider running for governor? I've been in Texas last 8 years of my military career in the Texas National Guard. Was a whistleblower. That's how I didn't have anything on the internet prior to becoming a whistleblower and testifying in federal court case against the DOD, which is a tall order when you're just a lieutenant colonel and you're going up against the might of the Department of Defense. But we were able to win the case essentially with some lobbying after that and speaking to legislators. Finally got the mandates dropped, so here we are. So I'm a known entity in Texas. But that was just the beginning of it. And I said I'll pray about it, folks. I'm not really interested in governor. I understand the machine that it is. It is a uphill battle. It's completely straight up on climbing a rope. But came back in a week and said, "All right, Lord, your will be done." And here I am. I'm sitting here right now. So
That's awesome. Day of Pentecost, what an interesting day to receive your calling for this assignment. That's such a powerful day in the book of Acts, man. So, what about that particular date inspired you to jump in there and say, "Yes, I'm going to do this, Lord"?
right, yeah, and it was really just in not knowing that it was going to be that particular date. But that's the day it was. But I said I would pray for a week, and I just never heard no. And a matter of fact, I did some talking to some people and like General Flynn and Alan West and people that I know that have been around the political realm that I know, and they said politics hasn't changed, but the security of the nation has, and it's not better. And so we need to have and this is my words now, but reading between the lines, we need to have a wartime governor, if you will. And when I say war, I'm talking about a hybrid kind of color revolution that's taking place in this nation that's insidious. It's a slow growing, kind of like a cancer, and you don't see it because it's not in your face. It's not kinetic. There's nobody shooting. There's nobody doing anything but anything overt. But as a guy that's trained in special warfare, especially unconventional, I know the phases of what something like this would look like downrange. And now I'm watching it happen here. And it may not be for 8 years. It may not be for 10 years that we see a shift towards literally socialist, communist type takedown. But that was the intent all along for our not only the Soviet regime, which is fallen after Reagan, but also with regard to the tie between the CCP, the Chinese, what they want to do, and then you've got all the different bad actors. You've got jihadists that are coming into Texas that are planting their lily pads around the state, and that's what that is. That's a precursor to more push towards Sharia law. And then you see with the cartel factions, they're kind of the bad actor thugs in the group that are pushing the fentanyl and the human trafficking and all those things. So all that does is it demoralizes, disenfranchises, it sets us apart from each other and trusting our government, and then it destabilizes the nation, and it has for a while. We can see it in pockets around the country. So, as a guy that sees that train coming, Ezekiel chapter 33, there's a watchman, and if I don't warn, then and it's on my head. But if I do warn, and our leaders don't listen, then it's on their head.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's a great way of putting it. Here at Daniel Nation, we have a group of statewide intercessors that we pray for our state legislature every Tuesday. And just this week, I was saying, you guys are the watchmen on the wall for Texas. You got to intercede for our future and for the next generation. So thank you, sir, for stepping up as a watchman. So let's jump into some policy issues here. I mean, there's some real differences between you and Governor Abbott. The first one being border security. Abbott has been out there pretty adamant about border security in recent years with his Operation Lone Star plan. What is wrong with his plan, and what can you do better?
Right. Well, it's a lot. It's easy to sling mud if from the outside and say, well, this is wrong and this is wrong. I would say that it's a half measure. And I worked on Operation Lone Star. I was there when it kicked off. Now, Operation Lone Star should have started taking place 2 years before it actually kicked off. So waiting for things to set in motion, we call that in the military world setting the conditions for, right? So it's an invasion. It was an invasion on the border. Now, that invasion was a human osmotic pressure invasion. Michael Yon, a Green Beret friend of mine at war correspondent, uses that term. Um, and it pushed a lot of people in that destabilized our abilities to then conduct typical normal immigration, right? So it stressed the system out. And we knew it, we saw it coming, and we advised way back in the day when we were the first Green Berets on the border, me being the first one, and then us bringing more teams on, that we need to declare foreign terrorist organization and also transnational criminal organization as a standard to then have a place where we can start working on those networks to take them down, so that 4 years later, which is where we're at now, we would not be where we're at. So I'm not going to wait for the bomb in the road, if you will, to blow up my truck. As I've lived through one of those, it's where I didn't want this, but it's where I am. So you learn to be proactive. We call that left of bang thinking. You've got to forecast out. How do you secure a nation? How do you secure a state? And by the Constitution of the state of Texas, it is incumbent upon the governor. It's not just an option. It is incumbent upon the governor to protect the state, regardless of what the federal government does. Now, the optic of Operation Lone Star was a good optic. I mean, there was and there were some good things done. We were looking for a needle in a stack of needle, if you will, when it came to counterterrorism, because of the numbers coming across. Brother, we had 12,500 on average a week at the height of it coming across Operation Lone, 1,245 miles of Texas border, most of it taking place from Del Rio East all the way to Brownsville. RGV, Rio Grande Valley, the hardest hit. But that's the optic is, well, it looks like our troops are down there. We went up to 10,000 troops on that border, and that's at the height of the numbers. But we weren't allowed to really stop anything. All we could do is just count heads and make sure that if we saw something that looked or sniffed, it smelled like a terrorist, we could then report. But we really didn't have the authorities that were required, because if you don't make those declarations, FTO, Foreign Terrorist Organization, and transnational criminal organizations, all the entities we were looking at, then you don't have the authorities. So you've got to have those authorities. And this goes in more into the policy side, but also into the constitutional read. And the argument that the lawyers gave us was, well, you can't go hands on because the rules of engagement are as such. And so, as a governor that's wartime governor, if you will, we've got to have the authority. So we've got to truly protect that border. We don't know who's coming in. Trump came in, thank God. All right, the tourniquet's been put on the border. Numbers have dropped. What do we? Well, who's coming in next? I can't wait for that to happen. We've got to be ahead of the curve.
Any idea how many illegals came into Texas during the Biden administration total, and are Trump's efforts? What percentage has he's deported from our state?
From our state, I'm going to estimate probably about 15, 20,000. And it's hard to really codify that. It's a lot of the federal side we don't see. Now you'll see it. It'll come out, and then Abbott will say, "Hey, look what we did." But it's really the federal government that's doing that right now, and that's what the repatriation process was about. But for me, I know personally that somewhere between 10 to 20,000, and I'm talking about fighting age males, possible bad actors, are in this state alone. Just the bad actors. When you if you ever had a chance to see 10, let's say 18,000 people walk across our borders, in our Texas border in Del Rio, in 24 hours, you would understand the enormity of it. When I saw that, when the Haitians showed up in Del Rio, there were 40 of us on the ground, green suiters, military guys, National Guard, and there were about 400 highway troopers that showed up, and it helped. But we got them under the bridge. I think we captured about 16,000 of them, got them under the bridge so that we could make sure that they got on buses, and they were going to send them back to Haiti, as Mayorkas said. And that's not what happened. They were moved into the interior of the country, many of them into San Antonio, back over to McAllen. Then the governor would bust them into other places into the country. I don't agree with that process because it is aiding and abetting an invasion. But there's a loophole with regard to what a governor can do, and it just didn't help the other parts of the country. We are still a union, you know, the United States of America. We shouldn't be putting stressors on other people, although it's tongue in cheek and it appears to be cute, but it's not the right answer.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, let's talk about another issue, medical freedom. Governor Abbott basically shut down businesses and churches in 2020 during the COVID pandemic, yet somehow Texans forgave him and put him back in office in 2022. How do your views differ from the governor's on medical freedom?
Yeah, completely different. Because for me, when you look at medicine is an art and is to be practiced by the providers. And there is to be the overseer of that is with regard to licensure is the Texas Medical Board. But I believe that between the Texas Medical Board and the corporatocracy, if you will, the corporations that came in and bought up all the Texas hospitals, I'm going to say this started somewhere around the beginning of Obamacare. I worked at a lot of residency. Well, I did my residency in Beaumont, Port Arthur, and those hospitals were either locally owned. The cities, kind of supported them. They paid taxes to the cities. We had Beaumont, Port Arthur. The nuns ran it down there, the Catholics. But you get up to the Red River and you look at what's happening in Texoma. Those hospitals were all bought by corporations out of Florida, right? So then they're running policy-driven medicine, right? So we saw some doctors in Texas take a beating. Mary Talley Bowden, MD, being one for doing for her case a court-ordered treatment of ivermectin to a patient. But here's the thing: is kind of like the behind the curtain of Oz. I worked for the governor's task force in the state operations center during COVID. I was the liaison. So they sent me as a sacrificial lamb, if you will, to go work there, which was good because I got to watch it from inside. And I actually still have, and it's on my website, I still have my first briefing that I gave in there in March the 20th, 2020, 2021. I gave a briefing and it says, consider giving ivermectin and hydroxychloroquine to all the frontline workers because I came from a mission in Africa. I still get deployed downrange once in a while as a Green Beret. Um, and I came from Africa right before COVID really kicked off here. Nobody had COVID in Africa. They were taking hydroxychloroquine to stave off malaria. And then I looked at some studies out of India and they were taking ivermectin and it was working. So I said, I considered it. And this is what I was told directly by the state health services, DISHES, it's called, Department of State Health Services. Um, well, we're not talking about ivermectin in this room, Colonel. Just keep that to yourself. Why is that? Well, Trump said that. Now it becomes a political thing. See, this is the politics that takes place behind the scenes, and it's a political thing. I'm like, well, Trump's not a doctor. I mean, I respect the man. He's not a doctor. I'm telling you right now, this will work. We don't need to put people on remdesivir. We don't need to give the shots for the average age person. And I didn't know anything more or less than anybody else, but I just used the common sense that I was given, and I did some homework and I started listening to other docs out there. And that's really why the focus for me is to decentralize medicine, just like I would decentralize education. There are reasons for that. When you spend most of your money on the administrative side of the house and not where the rubber meets the road, then that money is subject to fraud, waste, and that mostly in waste category, and abuse. And then we saw a lot of fraud, waste, and abuse. You saw what happened in Minnesota with the child care thing. I think that's going to be the tip of the iceberg with what's going on in Texas when we audit this thing.
Yeah, absolutely. So, if you did become governor, would you ever shut down businesses and churches during a pandemic?
Oh my gosh, no, no, that was my exactly. Thank you. To watch a liquor store stay open, right, and then churches, and there were some brave souls out there, and God bless them, that had critical thinking skills that said, no, we're not going to shut down our churches, right? In Texas, I meet a lot of those folks out there on the road because I talk to people of faith and also people in the pulpit, and they say, Doc, same question you asked me, please don't do that to us. Here's why I give a warning now. This is a Watchman thing. Um, the WHO, World Health Organization, has in its sights control of the United States. It's a globalist organization, and you saw Trump. He pulled the money off of the money flow into the WHO, and then Biden put it back on again. So our tax dollars are paying for the next pandemic health emergency of international concern, PHEIC. That's where they were looking at how are they going to then hit us with the next pandemic. So we heard things about Marburg. We heard things about some kind of hemorrhagic flu coming along, some kind of Zika, some kind of this or that. Now, I'm not saying that to be, head in the sand and not look at things, but let's look at it not policy wise, but medical wise. As I was fired over the border for doing informed consent, and this is what the two-star general told me, Texas Military Department General, two-star, sent him down and said, "Doc, nobody's taking the shots. We look terrible." I said, "Sir, they don't need to take them. They're young. Here's the informed consent brief." He said, "It ain't about the science, Doc. It's about the policy. Get with the program." Now, he liked me and I liked him. But because of it, he said, "This is going to be your career." And I said, "Sir, I've been injured in combat taking care of my guys. My career is going to be the last thing I think about when I'm not going to give them without informed consent and them being able to say." Anyway, that's where the testifying in the court case came. But you've got to be willing to stand up against the hard thing, right? Even though it's the might of the Department of Defense, even though it's your career, you've got to stand in the gap. And that's what we do, right? As a provider, especially with a Hippocratic oath and just my morals and ethics, that alone. And then never don't forget, we still had regulations that said troops could have a choice. But there's so much more because now we look at this and say, okay, well, this is fitting in this pie and piece of the puzzle, and this is fitting in this piece. These are attacks upon our nation, attack on our food, attack upon our weather, attack upon our well-being, attack upon in medicine. We still mRNA, modified RNA vaccines are still experimental, right? So moratorium day one for me. We're not touching that in Texas until I see some true studies that show that it's safe. We don't want to be phase three trial of this thing. I lost too many soldiers over that with heart attacks and well myocarditis, pericarditis, strokes. Strokes went up 1,100% in the military in a fighting age population in the Department of Defense alone. So
Wow.
we've got to do better. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, man, I tell you what, that was a crazy era that we all lived through. Let's talk about property taxes, an issue that is talked about in every legislative session, and we're going to get property tax reform, and we get a little bit, but not much. Abbott tried to get meaningful property tax relief in the 89th session, but failed. How do your views differ from Governor Abbott's on property tax relief?
Well, Governor Abbott has come out seems like every time he's had an election, and people send me pictures of his tweets and all this, and I get it. Here's the main thing: what you do at the governor's office, okay, what you do sets the conditions for the second and third order effects of what happens locally. So when the governor says now, well, it's not me that's doing it; it's the local level that's causing the property tax problem. Well, now, Governor, let's back up a little bit. What do you have? What do you have with regard to administrative control over the central appraisal districts, the county level appraisal districts? Well, when those people are appointed to those appraisal districts, to those boards, they are appointed. Right now, Johnson County, there's one county in Texas completely not appointed, but people that were chosen from the community to sit on that board, and they've got it under control. Right, they've got it somewhat under control. But when we look at the reforms that we need to do, that number one, that central appraisal district. Number two, when you declare an emergency, Governor, it used to be up to 8% increase that was authorized. I think it's 3.5 now for local counties to increase their taxes. I'll give you an example. On July the 4th, I went down with my team to the Guadalupe River. We were going to kick off that day and be on a float flight, driving down the streets in Lakeway. But we spent 3-4 weeks down there in on the river. Kerrville was hit hard, right? Remember this. Ingram was hit hard. Hunt was hit hard, all the way to
Mhm.
Sandy Creek. So right away, Kerr County, within the first couple of weeks, increase in taxes locally. Emergency declaration. 75% of emergency declaration funds come from the federal government. All right. So we have a floating living budget right now in the state of Texas, an emergency fund that's in the billions. I believe I'm going to say between 20 and 30 billion. I don't have the numbers in front of me, but it's in the billions. All right. So when we have an emergency, well, first of all, some of that money is still in there from Harvey. So if we have that, why do we, within 2 weeks, the local citizens who are still digging out, we are still looking for bodies in the river. Why do you demoralize them even more by increasing their taxes and put the stressors on their finances when they've got to build homes again? So that to me is the number one and number two thing. So I call this a stop the bleed, stabilize for treat the wounds, and then long term care. And the long term care thing would be to for me is to have single family dwellings 100%. You don't pay property taxes. When it comes to what goes into that, school taxes. All right. Well, school taxes are a big problem because our estimates, and these are people that are on the task forces. We already have task forces built out there, commissions built with different people sitting on them that understand this. I can't drink from the fire hose and pretend to know everything about everything. I can't. But they got the smartest people in the world, and this is what they say: is that 80% of those school taxes go to administrative costs. 1,207 districts, lots of overhead, lots of needless jobs, a lot of waste there. We need to flip that around and put more towards the school teachers, paying them more. Uh, Certified teachers are leaving by the drones, by the dozens, and they are going to private schools or they're moving out of state. And we're losing that. And then we also have to consider what are they dealing with in the classroom. So it's just a one size fits all cookie cutter. We're just going to teach kids how to take a test, the STAR test. All right, so we're just going to teach them how to take a test. But the problem is that you set the bar low in the classroom when you have the special needs kids in the same room with the ESL kids, in the same room with the advanced kids. So we need to, kind of break that down so we can still take care of all of them, right? All of them, but at the rate that they can exceed. Because otherwise, you will never get those star pupils to go out. My son, who grew up in a classroom of almost a quarter of them, English as a second language, we had to do. He's 25 now, but we had to do homeschooling after class after he came home from public school, right? And I love public school system. That's what I grew up in. But we need to do better there. Texas is number 40 out of 50 states. 11 years ago, it was 41st. We're number 40. And here's the light at the end of the tunnel, or the light on the silver lining on the cloud, is that Alabama and Mississippi have moved up higher in rankings than Texas, not above us, but have moved up quicker in their own rankings when they decentralized education in their states. We've got to get away from the Texas Education Administration's total control over local. When I ask local people, they're all about it. Like, yes, we can. Because how do you say that teaching in downtown Austin is the same as teaching in Ruskin? I mean, the environments are different. Let the local education administrations, who do exist, let them have autonomy over how they teach and what they teach and how they do it, so that they can exceed with their type of atmospherics. It just makes sense.
Yeah, it does. So, going back to property tax relief, I know Texas Public Policy Foundation put out a study several years ago about how to fully eliminate property tax by buying down the school rate, and then eventually leading towards just total elimination of property tax. Would you be in favor of going to a consumption tax or fair tax if we got rid of property tax?
Yeah, we would have to look at that. I mean, there's no way around it. You can't turn the economy on its head and just say, well, we're going to eliminate property tax. We can't. But a consumption tax, I believe, would fit in the category between phase one and three for me, because I believe this. I believe Texas has enough money to cover all the taxes, all the taxes. This is what I believe. Now, until we get there, I don't know. But a consumption tax is what's going to buy us through in that middle zone, right? And that's what our guys, all of them come back. Now, the first time I mentioned the word value added tax, a VAT tax, well, they nearly strung me up, put me on a rail out of town. But that's okay. We put that on our website. So, well, can we consider this? Oh, that's too European. It's this. That's what I want. I want dialogue, right? Because then I ask people, okay, you're passionate about this. You send me a couple, three emails that shows me that you care. Hey, listen, will you get on the task force with us? Of course I will. That's how we move forward. That's citizen led governance, and that's what my job would be as governor, is to be the bully pulpit. I can speak to people. I could do fireside chats. I could do a weekly talk. I could do a daily talk. If there's a problem set and we're not seeing movement in the legislature, we'll just go around them. You remember 391 commission under Rick Perry? They stopped the Trans Texas Corridor, a commission of citizens mixed with their local leaders. So two counties started it, and they stopped the Trans Texas Corridor under NAFTA, which was a highway going to Canada from Mexico. So citizens have a lot of power. It is, by the way, what is it? Bill of Rights, Article 1, Section 2. All power is inherent in the people. There you go. I mean, that's how you get it back. And all I have to do is just orchestrate it. But you got to be on top of it. I can't be visiting other countries trying to bring in other type H-1B visa folks.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's talk about education because we kind of hit on that with property tax reform. So the governor passed school choice in the 89th legislature last year. As a result, President Trump re-endorsed Governor Abbott's reelection campaign, and also he endorsed all the legislators that voted for school choice. Do you think that Abbott's school choice program brought meaningful education reform, or is it going to really fix the problem?
No, it's not going to fix the problem. The devil is always in the details. So the first time that I looked at it, and somebody asked me, this is right out of the gate, running for, considering running for governor. Well, what do you think about vouchers? I'm like, well, I don't know. Let me read it. So I went in there and I read it in details. I sat down with my team, and the way I read it is I don't like it, and here's why: the details allow for things to happen that are the second and third order effects of that, which means $25 million going to Sharia schools, right? So you get around the system by using the details. Um, but then when I spoke to teachers about this, and looked at the Bluebonnet plan, which is it sounds nice. It's Texas Bluebonnet plan. It's great, but it matches up too much with UNESCO, United Nations World Education Program. So we need to do better. We need to bring it truly back into a Texas style, and then once again allow for local inputs on the way that's done. Um, it pushes people towards the private schools. You talk to public school people that are passionate about it; they don't like that because they believe they can do it. But this is a minefield, if you will, for a guy like me. But I don't need it. I don't take endorsements from politicians just because you take on their enemies when as an outsider, non-incumbent that has a name recognition is my main problem. So I don't need any more mud thrown at me just because I align with somebody. yeah,
Yeah, I feel you on that one for sure. Let's
yeah,
talk about another hot button issue since 2020, especially with President Trump's reelection. That's election reform.
yes.
Governor Abbott has not brought any meaningful election reform to the state of Texas since the 2020 election that I've seen, except for getting us off of Eric, which I appreciate. But other than that, I haven't seen meaningful reform. What can we do to fix our election system?
All right. So the first thing we got to do is we have to appoint a Secretary of State that will actually be thinking the same way that the citizens think, right? Because that's all I do. I just take the litmus test here of the citizens, and everybody I talk to is really, what are you going to do about this, Doc? And I'm like, get in office, right? First, and then go out there and appoint a Secretary of State that won't use an outside law firm to sue the state to keep elections open, in the primaries. That's a problem. We've got to close those. We've got to clean the rolls. There's a lot of people in Tarrant County. There's a lot of with duplicate, triplicate voter ID numbers. There's a lot of people in the thousands, tens of thousands in Harris County that are some of them in their hundreds. We've got to do better than that. So that those two main things have to happen, and then we got to consider obviously paper ballots and hand counting. I went up there and learned how to do that at the sheriff's convention and taught sheriffs because I thought it was that important, like a year and a half ago, well before thinking about this, because I've been in the election integrity business, so to speak, with a think tank down in Dripping Springs that actually was looking at the source codes that came out of Venezuela, as we're hearing them in the news right now. So we may see some improvement there, but also out of Serbia, and it had to do with Smartmatic, ES&S, and the same man in the middle attack, which is the infrastructure of the inputs that come out and the outputs that go in and out of those machines is susceptible. The heart system, which is what they're using now, is susceptible to the same attacks. And so if we really truly want to feel comfortable about elections, we've got to do that. I was kind of hoping there would be an executive order come down from the president, but that's okay. We'll make it through this primary. But I think that the ability to look at a hand count and to be able to audit it is really where I stand. Now, people will argue that all day long, and that's okay. But I just watch the system. I know it can work. I know you can close out a precinct by the evening. It's pretty fail safe. So I like that. But yeah, those are the things we got to do. But it starts with that Secretary of State.
Yeah, I agree. Speaking of the SOS, what are your thoughts on SOS Jane Nelson hiring these big time lawyers to fight the party that she has been a part of her whole life as a senator, and she's pushing back against closing the primary? I don't understand this. What's going on there?
Right. Well, closing the primary, what it would do is actually it would just keep, for people that don't really follow this stuff, probably your audience does, but it does protect that Republican vote will matter, right, in the Republican primary or the Democrat primary, right? It protects that, and so what we've seen in the past is when they're open, then a lot of times somebody wants to keep someone in, they'll go ahead and get those to come in on the primary side. And it really makes it difficult. um, Remember Allen West and Prather and the Huffines when they were running that last one, they kind of split the vote because all three of them were kind of well-known names, especially Huffines and West. But 1.6, I believe, 1.6 million people voted in that primary, roughly. Don't hold it against me if I'm wrong, but I think that's it out of the possible 20 million. Right, so we've got to get people to get out to vote. Your vote does matter, but to close that thing would then keep it honest, right? It would be those people that want that specific platform, that conservative value. Otherwise, it's gamesmanship. It can be used to push an election towards an incumbent. I doubt it would push somebody towards somebody that's challenging.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think we want Republicans choosing Republicans based on our platform. I mean, it makes sense to me. Let's talk about water and energy for a minute here. Governor Abbott has basically allowed the electric grid to crumble under his 3 terms as governor. What will you do to fix the electric grid?
Well, first of all, we've got to look at who runs, and do you know, it's interesting. I'm learning more about this grid. I'm speaking to some very intelligent people on this. Texas has 7 subgrids essentially in that one grid that is Texas, right? But what's happened is that and the flow is controlled by ERCOT, which is the flow. But some of those people are appointed from other states and things, and I've got to get a handle on that. That needs to be Texas driven because if an emergency like your winter storm Uri happens again, um, we want the flow to continue, but we got to start thinking further down the line. You're right. The grid is old, it is frail, and it is susceptible to attack. As a guy that looks at infrastructure, especially on attack, if I want to take down a nation just kinetically now, when we're talking about straight up unconventional warfare going in to take over a nation, if the grid is so easily attacked, that makes it a national defense problem for us. And I'm going to tell you right now, firsthand, as a guy that's studied this stuff, it is susceptible to attack. There's a lot of Chinese components that come in the batteries that are going in the ground. That's another thing for energy. That's to kickstart should we have a problem again, like Uri. But those components can be controlled remotely. I don't want that potential to be there. That needs to be stopped. Moratorium on that immediately with batteries in the ground. With AI data centers, those things are coming in. They believe they want up to 300, 400 new data centers in Western Texas. Abilene alone, that first one that I studied, 463 million gallons used from 23 to 24, right? And not to count the amount of electricity that it takes to run one of those things. The local citizens are telling me right now, hey, our electric bills are through the roof, our water bills are through the roof, and because it's becoming the mecca, mecca center for what is it, Stargate, which is going to be up there by Lubbock. That you can't, because I travel, you can't get a hotel in those little towns for less than $300, $400 a night. Now that this has nothing to do with energy, but it tells you the amount of people that are coming in there to work on this stuff, right? To turn West Texas into a data center. Here's the problem: when you go just down the road in Lubbock and you talk to a cotton farmer, right? Cotton is king in Texas. When you talk to him and he says, I get 18 inches of rain and I can't buy enough water anymore, I'm gonna have to shut down my cotton business. And he's one of the top producers there. All right, when you talk to people and say, well, the Ogallala aquifer, which is the one that's there, by 2050 will be dry. That's a concern. So how do we hold off on that without no studies being done to take water? We need to do some studies on how to put water in. Kansas right now is doing a aqueduct to move water from the Ogallala River to the ranchers. We can do that in Texas. We pipe everything in Texas. Put a desalination, 2 or 3 desalination plants on the coast, run them with small nuclear yield um, generators, and and then tap into the other 60% of our gas, for gas generators, natural gas. We can do that. We can buy the time in between because the wind energy isn't going to cut it.
Yeah, agreed. So, I mean, what do we do to protect water rights for property owners in Texas?
Right. Well, we've got to stop this. There's a lot of people coming in with a lot of money that are putting wells just a little bit deeper. I'm going to speak specifically about the Nichols reservation that they're wanting to put in over there and near Tyler. That would be Lake Palestine area, and then also all the way up to the Bodark Reservoir up on the right up on the Red River. Those folks are telling me that hundreds of thousands of acres have been imminently domain taken away. So you got people that have lived there for generations. Their land is being bought, but at a reasonable rate, maybe not. But when you look at the developments that are coming in, which will be along the edges of these lakes, right? When you have foreign buyers that are coming in to buy those, it looks like a land grab to me. Right? I'm just calling it what it is. And so, uh, water reservoirs are important for Dallas Fort Worth, especially you got the Texoma Denison Dam, reservoir, which does produce some energy and some water for Dallas. But water rights, the local citizens telling us that they can't dig any deeper to get water, and it's gone out down hundreds more feet. And then there you go. That starts shutting down local ranches. As far as I'm concerned, AI and all those data centers can't produce water. They can't produce food. We need to balance that because there's a war on our food. Uh,
Yeah, agreed. Well, let's talk about the elephant in the room here. You go across the whole state. I go across the state as well, but you're probably going further than I am right now. But what do you hear from constituents about the concern over Sharia law coming into Texas and the Islamization of Texas?
this is probably my number one, tied number one, number two, taxes. But most people that are switched on understand that taxes are secondary if you're not secure, right? Most people are switched on understand that. And so this is the wartime governor theory that kind of called this now for us phase three, the battle for Texas. That is a lily pad. Sharia law is a law that does not, cannot exist under the Texas Constitution nor the U.S. Constitution. However, we have two Sharia law courts in Dallas, Fort Worth area. We have hundreds of mosques. Now, the intent of a lot of these mosques is to I'm going to be very honest here, and this is the elephant in the room. It's to radicalize. It is what it does. It is what it is. It's a culture. It is not in that sense religious. Now it is under the religion of Islam, but with regard to the intent of many of these that have ties directly to the Muslim Brotherhood, the CARE organization, right? So when you have ties to those, and there should be seven more names that are on that list. These are the ones that we proposed even 4 or 5 years ago to the governor's staff. If we don't see it for what it is, if you have a tie to those things, which me, our team personally, made up of many tier one operator, analyst types and targeters, we know what that network looks like. It wouldn't take us long to make short order of it when we can share that network now, and we've shared it before with other organizations in the state. Uh, with the Texas Rangers, with local law enforcement to say, hey, you can't be tied to a terrorist organization in Texas and think that this mosque right here we're going to be okay with it. Because when your imam, and that's your religious leader, is doing that and tied to it, Houston, we got a problem. And so that's what I believe is we can make short business of that because we can get right to it and start shutting those things down because we have to. We can't allow for a neighborhood to change the culture. When my dad came to this country back in the 50s, and he was from Eastern Europe, and he changed his last name, he assimilated to United States culture. We didn't learn his language. He changed his last name to as close as he can get, Chambers from Chamberis. He married, my mom, and American, and grew up in this culture. 100% son, he's talking to me, you're going to serve this country for what we've got because he lived through a civil war in his country where the communists were trying to take him. And so when you come here, you assimilate to this culture, right? You don't pull the culture into your culture. It's just not how it's done. That's why America, the melting pot that it is so great. But to take it and say we're going to fraction it out into different subcultures, no bueno, it's not going to work in Texas. This everything dear to the American character, William Barrett Travis wrote in his letter. These people have that, and they're not going to put up with it.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, I think everybody's on the same page with wanting to stop Sharia law in Texas because it is not compatible with our Constitution in any way. It is a legal framework. It is a form of government. Honestly, if we want to be honest about it, it's the way they run their culture. But the question, the $1 million question, is how do you actually stop Sharia from spreading into places like Plano, Epic City, which is now the Meadow? They're buying up thousands of acres of land in other parts of Texas, doing the same thing, building now mega mosques down in the Houston area for the Shiites. Mega mosques, 55,000 square feet. How do we, because they're using our First Amendment rights to say under freedom of religion, we have the right to do this, just like Christians have the right to build churches, but we're not beheading people and beating our women. I mean, how do we, from a legal gut, if you're the governor of Texas, how do you use the power of your office to say you cannot practice Sharia full stop?
Right. Well, it's going to require more than strongly worded letters. Okay. And there's some techniques, tactics, and practices, things that we can do that obviously I don't want to give away all the secrets. And they're not secrets, they're just operational lines of effort and courses of action that must be taken. But understand that starts with investigations, that starts with the network, which we can jump into really quick, and we can shut those down based upon the ties to terrorist activity, ties to terrorist organizations, because they're there. I mean, you listen to Amy Meck. I mean, she puts out some great stuff, and I talk to those folks occasionally, and support them. John Guandola, we just had a meeting up in Dallas, in Waco yesterday, to a group of citizens. It's terrifying to many people, but if the watchmen, us, me and John and you and anybody else that's out here talking about it, if we don't tell you, right? You know that saying, that old saying, it was, we fear that which we do not know. I don't want you to be afraid. I want you to understand that the guy that's running for governor has a plan for this. We'll stop it so that you can sleep in bed in peace at night and not have to worry about it. But if I don't tell you, right? If I don't tell you, then it's going to hit you broadside, and we don't want that to happen. So, yeah, there are techniques with which you can do it, but it starts with investigations. It starts with actually shutting down the first one. As soon as you find the first one, you shut it down, right? And then it's just a stair step process. Others will fall because there's always going to be a network to those things.
Yeah. Are you concerned that if you don't become governor and we get Abbott for a fourth term, and of course we're losing Ken Paxton as our attorney general because he's running for U.S. Senate, so we don't know who's going to win the AG office seat, but with change of leadership, are you concerned that we will not have the leadership in place to really push back hard against Sharia in Texas in this next wave?
Completely, probably 50% of the reason why I'm sitting here talking to you today, that concerned, because this is not an easy task and this is not fun by any means. I make it fun, but it is not the day-to-day drudgery of going around, and when you get in front of people, I love it. That's where I'm talking, and we're having town halls, and it's great. We had a Antifa guy show up at one of ours the other day and put a little excitement in the game. But for us, it's this is a labor of love. This is because we do care about the citizens of Texas, and it's going to require some hard work. And yes, I am concerned because I have to ask the question: do we have 4 more years? Do we have 8 more years? Do we have 1 more year before cells start popping up? We see what's happening. Just look at the roadmap that's taken Minneapolis to where it's at. Look at the roadmap that took New York to where it's at. They're a little bit behind there. Dearborn, Michigan. I spoke to, and I still speak to, Andrew Bridgen, a member of parliament in London, pretty regularly. We text back and forth. And when we have our discussions, this is him to me, Doc, you have your Second Amendment there still, thank God, because London is fallen. So these are warnings, these are harbingers, and these harbingers, if we just take them lightly, then I guess I could have just went on and retired and raised some cattle because that's what I really wanted to do up on the Red River, but not gonna do it. This is a different world we're in, and so and biblically, Caleb and when he was looking over in the Promised Land, there's Nephilim, we can take them. He didn't cross over until it was 86. There's no retirement in the Bible. Now I'm 61 right now. So I'll be here until we finish the mission.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, do you think there's any hope for London or Europe of ever getting Sharia out of their communities now that it's taken
Yeah,
root?
yeah. There's always hope, but it's how hard do you want to fight to get it back? Because that's really where they're at. And then right now, we are not at the precipice where I'm concerned it's going to flip over next month or next year, but we're approaching the precipice as far as the apex of this thing. And once it crosses over, it's a watershed effect. And I know because I've seen it. I've seen color revolutions from within the countries that were taking place. And once it goes, it's a watershed. And it doesn't take a majority for it to happen either. Just like it doesn't take a majority of citizens in the state of Texas to truly switch on to flip it the other way. I mean, all I need is a million and a half votes to win the primary, and that's it, right? And that's why we're fighting on that battlefield, which is Thermopylae versus the plains of Jordan. I mean, we are fighting on a battlefield where we know these are how many people we need to get to win this election, and that's why we're so streamlined and can do it. But in the meantime, we it's the Lord's will to be done anyway. It doesn't matter what happens in the end. It's His will. But for me, I'm not going to quit. I'm not going to quit pushing truth. I'm not going to quit being that. What did it was on Bannon not too long ago, and the guy that came on after him, a guy named Eric Prince, came on after, and they were talking a little bit on the crossover, and he said, "Well, what do you think about this Doc Chambers?" And Eric Prince goes, "It ain't the size of the dog in the fight; it's the size of the fight in the dog." Right?
That's right. Yeah,
Right? So
absolutely.
I kinda like that. I was like, "Okay, fair enough," because yeah, we don't have $100 million war chest or whatever it is, but we do have the citizens of Texas that in increments of $18.36, it's our primary one we get because that's the year Texas became a republic. We gave that as a button, and people are giving it monthly, and that's what's carrying us through. That's the majority of it.
Yeah, that's great. With all the growth that we've had in Texas, I mean, it has been a blessing, but there's also obviously drawbacks. Do you feel like most of the people that are moving here are pretty conservative? Do you think we're going in the right direction as far as population growth, or do you think we're getting a lot more moderate liberals coming into Texas as well? Where do you think we're headed with our growth?
Yeah, great question. I think that the 50,000 a year H-1Bs that come in to take IT jobs, I think they're indifferent to politics altogether. They're going to do whatever their boss tells them to do, and they're not going to be voting. But eventually, they'll, if they get their citizenship, they will be. That's just one faction. But I believe that the Californians that I meet that are in Central Texas and around the Dripping Springs, Wimberley area, good people. They left California for a reason. Now they're saying to me, and this is them telling me, I'm thinking about moving back no, I'm thinking about moving to Florida now because Texas isn't what we thought it was, right?
Wow.
This is what I'm hearing, right? They left California because of that. And now I'm thinking about moving to Florida. So people are literally patting themselves away from the thing that they left. As far as what comes out of New York, which because we know we're going to see an exodus there, I believe that we'll probably be more conservative in that regard. The last bastion, but most people, honestly, I'll tell you, they're indifferent to politics. They just think about getting up in the morning and going to work and maybe voting a general election because it's presidential. Otherwise, the numbers would be different. They would reflect differently in the primaries.
Yeah, I agree with you. Well, hey, in the last segment here, let's talk about your ministry, the Remnant Ministry, and tell us about that and what you do in that arena.
Thank you. Yeah, that's really awesome because that's going to be with us, whatever happens here. It's still going on. So 2 days ago, some of our guys went out and linked up with another team, rescued a kid out of Oklahoma. They brought him back down. He was abused. That's just one. So our Remnant Ministry TX is a non for profit. It's a 508c1A. But what we do is counter human trafficking. We are an association of ministries, and we also do humanitarian relief, sometimes large scale North Carolina floods, hurricanes, sorry, and the floods in the Guadalupe. So we're very capable at handling chaos, but we also can find those needles in a stack of needle, which are the child, child predators. And so we'll continue that on. I've stepped back a little bit. I just advise now, and then the guys are still working. But yeah, that is a labor of love, and that's truly what brought me to just be in the position where somebody would ask me to run for governor because it's just people see you out there doing stuff and they say, well, you can lead them. Yeah, leadership is not hard. It's the trying to get people to follow you that won't fall to one of four things. And here's what, remember this audience. This is what flips people. Good people that go into office. Good people. Mice, M-I-C-E, money, ideology, coercion, and ego. We all got an ego, right? And you try to, my ideology is my Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. That's where I stand. Money, look, I got a retirement, but you can make people flip. But the number one thing in politics is coercion. It's sins of omission or commission, where they get pressured enough by something to vote the wrong way, to do the wrong thing, to take the money under the table. That is right now Psalm 15 this morning. I read it this morning. It's talking about, that to keep yourself honest, to keep your tongue and your heart honest, right? It just happened to be that it was this morning, but it's what when somebody asked me, well, what about you? Are you going to change like so and so did down there in Houston, that seal? I'm like, no, ma'am, or sir, look, I'm gonna stick with my word every day, and that's gonna keep me there. I'm no different than any other human being. We all fall underneath those same temptations, but I will try my best to keep following it every morning. Die to self.
Amen, brother. That's awesome. Well, Doc, where can people go to find out more about your campaign?
Sure. On the campaign side, it's Doc Pete Chambers with an S, docpetechambers.org, and that's our campaign. And look, I ask you to get on there and look at the policies, because there's a lot of work a lot of people did to put those together, hours and hours, hundreds of hours. The H-1B visa policy is I mean, it's just it's just amazing. It makes you got to look at it. I'm talking like Trump now. Amazing. It's great.
It's
I'm just
huge.
tired.
It's huge.
Huge, huge, huge. Yeah, yeah,
Oh, that's awesome, man. We
yeah.
were actually in New York on 9/11 last year on a ministry trip, and
Oh
we
yeah.
went to the Trump Tower. And there was a guy out there that was a Trump impersonator as people came into the Trump Tower. And I mean, I was just laughing
That's
real
pretty
hard.
cool.
He's so iconic. I mean,
He is. Yeah, it's great to watch. When he first came into the to running in 2016, I was like, this guy's a talk show guy. I don't even know. He builds buildings. Okay. I mean, I wanted it to be was uh gosh, the doc. What's his name? The doc. Anyway, the neurosurgeon. Can't remember his
Oh,
name off the top of my head.
yeah, 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 yeah. I'm
Anyway,
having a brain moment here.
yeah, that's exactly what happened to me. But
Yeah.
but he grew on me, right? He grew on me because he did what he said, right? Did what he said he was going to do. And to me, that's what
Oh,
we're to do.
Ben Carson, was that the one?
Carson, that's it.
Ben
Yeah,
Carson. Yeah, yeah,
yeah. But
yeah.
to me, that's what I see, a man that says, "Okay, I'm going to do this." He may be rough around the edges. He may be, like me, just not the polished guy with the great hair and perfect teeth. Okay, so what? But where's your heart? Where's your leadership? What's your experience? Eisenhower went straight for president. I'm going straight for governor. There's no prerequisite for leadership. I don't have to be a lawyer or a former Supreme Court judge. Matter of fact, I think it'd be better not to be a lawyer. That's just me. I like lawyers. Some of them.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's great, man. So yeah, any predictions you have for presidential race 2028? You think JD Vance and Rubio might be on the ticket? What are your thoughts for 28?
Yeah, I would say, yeah, I think that's a strong ticket right there. Rubio's done a pretty good job. I didn't really follow him before as a senator out of Florida, but I knew that he was out there doing what he was doing. But he's done a pretty good job on the. I think that is probably on the state Department of State side. The victories that we're seeing right now around the world with regard to diplomacy, especially the tariffs on Mexico. I think that really potential for that put that put the reins on the numbers coming across, which was good, because they say that war is diplomacy by other means. I think that we got to avoid war at all costs. So having a Rubio Vance thing, a guy that's also a veteran, I think that would be a good ticket. Yeah.
And I saw Rubio last week just revoked a bunch of visas. Man, Trump's really going after this thing, isn't he?
He is doing exactly the people's bidding in that regard. There's nothing I can do about visas in the state of Texas, but I can let's just say work with corporations to hire more Texan kids. And then if you read that H-1B policy, you'll like that, because the ideas in there will work, and they're pretty good. Because I can't change federal policy, but I can protect from it.
Yeah, my son just turned 18 in this month, and one of his biggest complaints is, trying to find a job right now for an 18-year-old that's native born. I mean, all the
Right.
jobs are so competitive with these H-1B1 visas. He's just like, am I even going to be able to get a really good paying job out of college or not? So, I mean, that's a big issue for tech
Yeah,
workers
that's a
right
big
now.
issue, because the enterprise applications, SOX, it's called, is the federally mandated training required for IT. is not taught in our colleges, right? So it's touched on, but it's not taught. The H-1Bs come here from another country already having that in their basket, so to speak. We could start that as a VOTEC line in high school at 16 and let a kid go right into that and take those jobs away from the H-1Bs. Because you talk to the management of those companies that run tech, and they're like, look, if we could hire Americans, we would, but we can't because they want too much and they don't have the right training. They don't have this enterprise applications. It's just it's amazing to me that our colleges aren't teaching it.
Yeah, we need to start teaching it for sure. Well, Doc, thanks for coming on the show tonight. It's great to have you here. If you guys are interested in Daniel Nation and these monthly broadcasts that we do, our website is danielnation.com. We are at the intersection between the prayer movement and the grassroots movement in Texas. So we've taken people on buses to Austin to lobby for legislation in the 88th legislature, and we got 17 pro-conservative bills passed. Last year in the 89th, I think there was over 50 Republican priority bills passed. It was a pretty good session. So if you're interested in getting involved in the grassroots level in Texas, check out danielnation.com, or we have a weekly prayer call every Tuesday from 12 to 1 p.m. Central Time. Where we pray for our state legislature every week for 1 hour on Tuesday. So if you want to join that prayer call, more information is available on danielnation.com. Doc, it was a pleasure to have you on our show
Good to
tonight.
be
Thank
on.
you so much, sir, for coming on.
Yes, sir. God bless you.
God bless. Bye bye.